Troy, thanks for coming to the pod. This is great. Oh, your
I'm
AirPods.
glad to do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad to do it, man.
How you been holding up in this crazy time?
Um, I'm an adaptable person, so as crazy as this is, I just go with it because that's all the choice I have.
Yeah.
I'm a person who doesn't like to be sedentary. I like to be busy all the time. If I had a
Yeah.
choice between chilling and watching cool Netflix shows all day or doing 100-hour week, I'll always take the 100-hour week. Like that's not even a question.
Hmm.
It's just part of my DNA. So this is very difficult to go from I was doing between 90 and 100 hours every week to go from that level to literally zero. But I am, I'm just making use of the time and creating some other projects that do keep me busy.
That's great. And for those who don't know, I mean, every comedian knows who you are, but for those who don't know,
Well,
Troy Conrad is the photographer extraordinaire, producer. I saw in your bio comic as well,
I did
writer.
stand up, yeah, for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I created a show called Set List, and
Yeah.
that led me away from stand up and into full-time producing. And so that's what I worked on that show for a long time. And so, yeah, so I do all that stuff, and I get to, everything I do, I get to watch a lot of comedy, and it's pretty great.
Oh, that's awesome. And Setlist was a show that was on in England and Australia. Is that right?
Well, yeah, it was a TV show in the UK and Australia,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still going as a live show, still, overseas, in its, festivals, and then we're starting it up again. We actually were doing it monthly at the Improv until this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's still going as a live show, but we're still trying to get it as a US television series.
That's great.
And it's for those who don't know, it's
Yep.
improvised stand-up based on really crazy, ridiculous, weird, nonsensical topics that I write.
Yeah. And so you don't really know as a comedian what you're going to be talking about. You get a piece of paper and you got to kind of pretend like this is your act.
Yeah, you have no idea what you're going to be talking about, and it's great because there's a relaxedness to that. Like,
Yeah.
you can choose either like panic of like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm talking about, but every comic knows if you're thrown into a situation where maybe you were going to watch a show and then someone doesn't show up, now you got to run up and do a set, and you haven't had time to think about it.
Yeah.
This is that. It's like you're in a panic state, but you're trapped, so it's relaxing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was supposed to do one coming up, and I hope you do bring it back, and then we do survive this whole.
We are going to do.
Quarantine.
We're doing one. Yes, I will get you on a future show soon because
Yeah.
we're going to be doing our first online one next week.
Oh wow.
Through the Comedy Garage, and then we're going to start doing them regularly. And I'm looking forward to having you on because you've never done the show.
Never done the show.
And I don't think you've seen the show, or have you seen it live?
I have not seen the show.
Okay, yeah. So I'll hip you to the info. So it's a really good idea to watch a show before you do one. So
I definitely will.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's been a blast doing all that stuff, and I love working in the comedy world.
Yeah, I mean, you are the guy in the world, and we met through Julie Seabaugh, who was founder of the Roast Battle book, and she came to one of the Comedy Bunker shows that I ran, and I was like, I need a photographer. She's like, Troy, that's it. He's the guy. And then the first time we worked together, it just felt like so nice to have someone that I didn't have to like manage. You know what I mean? Like someone who just knows their craft. That's so important. Like, your craft, and then you come and it's like, I know the lighting's going to be good. I know the shots are going to be good. I know you're not going to get in the way of the comedians. The comedians know you from the store. They know you from the clubs, so that they feel comfortable when you're taking photos. And it was just always such a great experience.
Thank you, man. It's funny you say that about manage, because first of all, on one hand, I actually like it when a producer's like, hey, here's a shot that I really like. I can try to always ask like, hey, what particular do you want to make sure I get, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really funny when someone does try to like super overman. Once in a while, I'll get hired to shoot on a show, and maybe they don't know me well, and they'll be like, hey, can you go backstage and take a picture of the comics? And it's like they don't understand that I would be doing that. And it's really funny to me, like it, and it, when it's someone that does that, they're coming up to me every time, hey, did you get any pictures of the comedian who's on stage now?
Yeah.
And it's like, I would suck at my job if I didn't, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I have had people that you have to manage more, and then
Yeah.
once you have to do that once, you start to lose faith. Especially like I'm running around, I'm producing, I'm on the show, I'm getting the food ready. Like I was doing so many things, and to not have to be like even think about that you're gonna miss a shot or like not get someone in the green room was always so great.
Right. Yeah. You know what? And that's that's part of the job of a photographer. It's not just
Right.
taking good pictures. It's being able to work with people and, you know, not make people uncomfortable, not make the producer of the show work extra hard and
Yeah.
all, you know, all that stuff. There's so many elements to it besides knowing the settings and how to compose a photo. So
Yeah,
anyway, I
and your
appreciate it. I
turnaround
love shooting.
time. Yeah, and your turnaround time was always great. Like you got the photos like within 24 hours. You were good to give. Here's some for Instagram now. We'll give you the rest later. So I
Yeah.
always
Yeah. That's,
appreciated that.
thank you, man. That's a hard thing to do. People sort of, I don't think people understand that, but
Oh, it's
if
hard. Yeah,
you're,
yeah.
if you shoot raw photos, which any good photographer would be shooting raw photos, they take a long time to select through, to
Hmm.
process, to do everything to. So thank you for saying that. And I think there's a lot of photographers who hit me up all the time, and that's what I would tell them is learn how to edit fast.
Right.
Learn how to make your photos good and consistently, on schedule.
Yeah, because it can affect the timing of a flow. Like to be able to post the photos after a great show and give them to the comics where they're still excited to post them. Like if you wait a week out,
Exactly.
you lose the momentum, and then all that the photos don't get seen, which is a shame.
Yeah, momentum's a big part of it for sure. And so
Yeah.
I've appreciated shooting at your shows. I missed the Comedy Bunker. I'm sorry that it's no longer happening. It was a great,
Yeah,
great venue
it
for
was a
comedy.
great show. It was. There'll be other shows. Once we get through this, I feel like we're already getting through it. Like people, I drove around a month ago, and it'd be like a wasteland. You could go to. I wish I was a great photographer because I was like, oh well, like how do you capture the essence of it being so barren? Because I would put up my phone, I'm like, it's not it. Like it's just desolate. There's no one anywhere on Hollywood Boulevard. And now you go out and people are around, and I feel like they're kind of over it.
Yeah,
So,
there are. Yeah, like I'm on Hollywood Boulevard. I live right off Hollywood Boulevard,
okay.
so I'm there. I'm there a lot. And yeah, I haven't bothered with taking pictures of that stuff. But I mean, I will say this: if you want to take a cool picture where that shows how desolate and empty the streets are, just find as wide a
Yeah.
lens as you can, and
Or a
a
drone.
a drone would be amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
a drone
yeah.
would be amazing. But even a kit lens, like whatever like lens came with your camera,
Mm-hmm.
whoever you are, if you are out there and you bought a camera and it came with this lens, that's not going to be a good lens for like indoor or low light stuff, but that's a great lens for now. You just get wide as you can and you're tip top.
How did you learn all your photography skills?
So I was fascinated with it since I was a kid. My dad did a lot of photography and had, he had actual really cool film cameras, lots of lenses. But I never got passionate about it until I moved to LA and started making short films and then getting into still photography
Mm-hmm.
around the time Setlist started, which is, let's see, what is that? 10 years ago?
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
10 years ago.
Was the short
So
film the Eddie Pepitone film?
uh, that was the most successful one, but the ones I started early on, oh man, I did all kinds of stuff. I did all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I used to shoot I used to shoot a lot of short films and sketches for Mark Maron. This
Okay.
is before he had a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We just go out and just like make these stupid YouTube videos,
Right.
and then he started this podcast, and I heard he did well.
Yeah, he did all right. Kind of changed the medium.
Yeah, but yeah, I did make a film. This was 10. Oh no, is it 10 years ago now? Yeah, called Runyon Just Above Sunset with Eddie
Mm-hmm.
Pepitone, where he climbs up Runyon as if it's Mount Everest, and that was a great. I feel like an idiot talking about credits, but that was a fun. It's not about the credits; it was a really freaking hilarious film because
Yeah.
all you have to, by the way, if you're a producer watching this and you want a successful TV series or a movie, just hit up Eddie Pepitone, tell him the setting, have him improvise everything, and you will have a hit on your hands. That's how good he is.
He is
I'm not kidding, by the way. I'm not kidding. He is. If just hearing his own inner monologue, just hearing Eddie talk to himself in any situation is, I mean, everyone that worked on the film was just like the boom guy was like shaking, laughing the entire time. Everybody. So that is, if from now on, if someone says, "What's the key to success?" have Eddie Pepitone and just follow him around, and you don't even need a freaking script.
Yeah, his set at the Comedy Bunker was, I think he had like 15 minutes, and like 10 was just hilarious riffing on the venue, the mansion, this and that, and people still talk about it.
I was there for that. I was there for that, and he talked about, because I remember telling him, I go, yeah, this was a mansion that owned by the Arco founder, or whatever, and I think he used that in his set. You know, he's so good. He's the ultimate pandemic comic, I think. Anytime there's a tragedy, Eddie is the guy.
Yeah, definitely. And you brought Todd Glass through as well, which I really appreciated, and he was super funny and held it down.
That's right.
He was scheduled to come back actually before this pandemic hit, so
God,
it's too bad. But I ran into him at the Improv. He's like, "I'd love to come back." I was like, "I'd love to have you, obviously." And now we're here.
I'm glad he had a good time. Yeah, he had a blast. Well, that was great, man.
Yeah, and you seem to be always like, your name always comes up with different situations. Like I was talking to Alex Hooper about his yoga project. He's like, "Oh yeah, that happened because of Troy," and he had this pug yoga thing. Do you want to talk about that and how that all came to be?
Oh yeah, you know what's funny is I wouldn't remember this whole story if it weren't for Alex, because Alex is a human filled with gratitude, and he's like, "Troy, thank you so much." I was like, "Wait, what did I do?" And he goes, "Wow, we were at this, Alex books these shows at EDM festivals, and there's their stand-up shows within this big music festival scene."
Right.
And we were just like, it was just this crazy, super fun night, and we were all having the best time. And he was just talking about this project, and I go, "Alex, that's a real legit project." Like, he talked about having a calendar of, things. And I was like, "Dude, you should actually do this. We should just do it." Right. And he ended up following through. He called me like 2 days later. He says, "I want to actually do this." And within a couple of weeks, we had a plan. We were out shooting all over Los Angeles. And here's how great Alex is. Like, he not only followed through with his commitment to this project, but then after the project was done, he didn't just be like, "Okay, I finished it and I'll just post about it and it's out there." Like, he actually took the initiative to submit it to all kinds of other things. And one of his friends goes, "Hey, I'll even bring it to the Ellen show," because we do a calendar, say we would like make fun of ridiculous over the top calendars. And he goes, "Okay." And then it got on the Ellen show, and then that made it even better. And, but that's a huge credit to Alex, really to anybody who has that spark and then is not afraid to follow it through. I always tell people, read Seth Godin. Are you familiar with Seth Godin?
I love Seth Godin. Yeah.
Okay, great. Cow. So Purple Cow. I got to study a weekend. I did a whole weekend intensive with him in New York at this big purple building that he has. And it was all about, kind of linchpin, like stuff where you do your work so well. Yeah. Like do your work so well that that people can't really get on without you.
Yeah.
And we also talked about, this was a program called Ruckus Makers, and it's about doing something, even if it pisses people off. If it's in your DNA to do it, you just go out there and you do it. If it's some project you believe in, and people are going to criticize it. So we talked a lot about that, and it turned out to be a great project.
I mean, people are always going to tell you reasons why not to do something. It's even I had trouble with this podcast. I was like, "Oh, do you want to be another podcast?" And it was like another like Seth Godin type of inspirational person was like, "Just do it. Just start." You don't know what inning you're in, if this is the second inning or the 10th inning for podcast. There's always going to be someone telling you there's too many of something. Just do it. You could say that for photographers. You could say it for comedians, actors, musicians,
anyone,
basketball
artistic
players. There's too many people. But if you don't do it, you don't know.
You know what? if you work in a factory, let's say you stamp cut cookies on a conveyor belt, you won't ever have that voice that goes, nah, you shouldn't do this, man. Like that voice will not show up because you feel safe there and everything's good. But anyone who does something artistic that requires risk, you know who the number one person is that will criticize you that way is you yourself. Like your inner.
Absolutely,
when other people do it, it's like you were just waiting for them to do it because that voice is already in your head. For all of us,
for sure. And you became known as the comedy store photographer, so to speak. And I would say that your black and white photos kind of inspired a lot of people to kind of run with that style for a while. Would you say that that's a fair assessment? And or did you ever feel that like other people were doing you?
No. I first of all, black and white. I mean, man, it's just a medium I love, and it's been around forever. For me, if I look at a photo, I do love color. I love both, right?
Yeah.
But when I look at a photo, to me, black and white lets the person who's viewing the photo tell a story, make up the story and fill in the colors about that story. To me, that's, I know it sounds lofty, but I just mean like black and white lets you figure out the rest.
Yeah.
And it's very, very simple, you know?
It's romantic.
And so there's some, it is romantic. It just, to me, I freaking love it. And I love it. I love when people do black and white, and I tell people, hey, more people should be doing black and white, you know? And when you learn how to shoot really well, that's when, you know, your black and white work and your color work gets really good. And so, yeah, I encourage people to do what's inside them, you know? For me, it's just like in my DNA, like I freaking love black and white,
right?
You know?
Do you shoot in black and white or do you post-process?
So when I shoot in my camera, I shoot raw. I don't shoot any JPEG. But what I do is I shoot raw. It's called raw monochrome. And when I see the photo through the viewfinder or when I review it, it's always in black and white. When I load that photo, I can still get color from it because it's raw. I can do anything with it. But when I load it, I quickly, you know, go through the ones I'm going to choose, and then I process those in black and white. And I really love it. Sometimes people will be like, hey, can I get these in color? And sometimes I try to talk them out of it, but you know, sometimes people
I'm an artist.
People, no, not that. It's just that I'm trying to tell, like, hey, the color images, they'll look cool and everything. And if you need them for marketing, then you should have color images. Like sometimes like, hey, I'll give you both, but think about what you want to put out there. Like, I think black and white, just again, it's just my opinion, but as a photographer who loves black and white, I think it makes the comic and performer and the venue, I think it makes everything look a little more iconic. And if you look back now, if someone's scrolling through a random Instagram and they see a really well composed black and white, like well processed, everything, black and white photo, I think that's more attention grabbing than a color photo a majority of the time. I just think,
Absolutely.
I think there's an iconicness to a performer in black and white, you know?
Yeah. And when you started doing the photos for the Comedy Bunker, after your first one in black and white, I went back and I deleted every photo before then once we had enough. And the black and white aesthetic became the aesthetic for the Comedy Bunker. And then that with the logo, people started wanting to do the show to kind of get those photos as well. So it became a thing. And actually the only non black and white photos on the Comedy Bunker's Instagram were the ones you shot in color with that super saturated kind of feel. I don't know if that's the right term.
Yeah.
And a similar thing you kind of did for Chris D'Elia's thing, which I thought was beautiful. Like that really kind of like the blues were really deep
for his Netflix special. Yeah. I like using a lot of blue in my images, and it's a very tricky, it took me like 2 years to learn how to really color process on that with that kind of imagery. It wasn't just an easy thing to do. Like it's super not easy. But once I figured it out, I went, oh my God, it's a fun way to, it's a fun look for photos. So that's really cool. And I'm glad that became a thing. My goal is always to like have shows get popular, get more work off of having good photos. Like people don't think about it. It's like when actors and comics, I have a lot of comics that come to me and they're like, yeah, I just need to get one quick headshot. And I do that a lot for people, but it's like one quick headshot, like for a little bit more money, they could end up getting like a promo shot package and get stuff that they can put on their social media and their website and really like build themselves as a brand, as opposed to having like some shitty casting director be like, oh, good, you have your 8x10 like that. People don't care about that shit anymore. They care about your online persona, and your online persona should represent who you want to be 1 year from now.
Right. Oh, that's a good tip.
It really should. It shouldn't represent who you are now. By the time people see everything you put up, it's going to be a year.
Exactly.
But most people are going to see it a year from now anyway. But you want that to represent. You want to live into your future.
Live into your future. That's a good one too.
Create yourself to be bigger than you are. When you look at Chris Rock,
a trifecta.
Yeah, well, like look at Chris Rock. Like his persona on stage. He's way bigger. He's ridiculously way bigger in a concert than he is when you talk to him one-on-one. And he got asked in an interview one time on NPR's Fresh Air. Terry Gross asked him about like, what's that discrepancy about? You're like this big, huge, animated person. You talk really weird, like, nah. You're yelling. She goes, but I'm talking right now. You're normal. He goes, people don't pay for normal. People aren't paying $75 a ticket to see the average Chris Rock. They want to see the exaggerated best version of me. And I'm like, that's how everybody should be,
Yeah. You got to bring it.
Yeah. Bring the pain.
Yeah. There you go. Even Asif Ali, like I was collecting the headshots, so to speak, to make the flyer. And I was like, man, I can only find one. The guy looks like 12 in this photo. And I finally hit him up like, do you have another headshot? He's like, no, I stopped using headshots. Kind of like what you're saying. Like I have my headshots are all these other photos that people take. Like you don't really need that cheesy 8x10 as much, maybe if you're a traditional actor, but
right. If you're doing auditions and stuff like that, then sure, you got to have one of those that's up to date. Right. But as far as like your online persona, that doesn't represent who a comic is, like a headshot,
For those who don't know, because I remember being confused when I started out, you go to a photographer's site and it says like headshots, then it says like press and promo package, and then this other package, and you're not really sure. All you see is the price go up. But like, what does it mean to get, like, if someone comes to you and says, I want more than just the headshot package, like what are you doing for them?
Well, pre-pandemic, people would, nobody wants it right now. Nobody can go outside to even get a photo taken.
Yeah, but you have a pandemic safe package too, don't you?
I have a pandemic safe package. Yeah, I do. I actually have some sessions coming up where I'm shooting people with long lenses, and it's just as easy. But so here's the thing. Like there's the headshot where you just go and you have a casting director and you put it on their desk, or you go on Actors Now Casting, all those sites or whatever. But promo stuff, you want social media. You want to have things that you can make flyers out of. That's the number one thing. You want flyer material. So a cool picture of you, on a dimly lit, like you're in an alley and there's a brick wall and it's, there's this one single light coming down on you, and like spotlight type of stuff, things that look iconic, that have space in them for all the text and things, announcement about the show. That's the kind of thing a comic needs.
Right.
And it's by the way, it's super important, because how is everyone getting the word out about their shows? It's Instagram, it's, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. And then that's a one-click picture. Boom. Here's all the info.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of comics were using your photos from the Comedy Bunker, cropping everything out, and been putting their dates next to them because they gave them that image of them really doing the work and being, hey, I'm a comedian, and this looks cool.
Yeah, and that's smart of them to do, because that's the kind of thing that you want. You would never do that if you did that with your headshot. People wouldn't even look at the picture.
No,
like
horrible.
people would be like, why do I want to see that like info on your headshot? That's just weird.
Yeah.
But if you have a cool looking picture, and and so that's what those promo shots are, right? So I do stuff like that, and and then sometimes I do these more elaborate creative shoots where we go out for like 3 or 4 hours. We walk around and we go in maybe some bars. We go into different places and we get these cool low light shots that just look like different than anyone else has,
Yeah,
like
so you pulling people into the street in front of the Improv and like getting the traffic blur behind them, and
yeah, I love stuff like that. Yeah, anything, because that to me, that's like the SNL opening shot,
yeah,
and
very, yeah.
and people associate with that. So I think anytime there's room for a good creative shot, I'll grab someone. I'll be like, hey, get over here.
What are some of like the biggest mistakes people make when they start taking photos?
I can tell you. Well, I can say that for my I'm in the business of mistakes. Like I feel like my whole goal is like make tons of mistakes every day, every week. And that's how I get better every time. Right. I always, like, if you ask me like what level I'm at as a photographer, I'm always going to tell you I'm at level 5, no matter how far I go. I'm always at level 5. It means I have some stuff I built on, but I have a long way to go. That way I'm always getting better. And so as far as mistakes, I think the mistakes aren't as much technical ones. Like there's lots of those, and that's probably boring. But I can tell you that the mistakes that people make are mistakes that it's the same mistakes that comics make, and it always has to do with personality issues and how you relate to people. If you're a comic working a club and you're a jerk to the wait staff, and at the end of the week you don't throw them a little cash, or you don't, or you're really mean to somebody, as like even performing, and you're like you're doing a hacky bit where you have to be mean to somebody in the front row or something. It's that personality stuff that actually impedes people's careers, and I get to watch it all the time. I watched it when I was starting out. I watched myself do that kind of stuff, where I would like attack somebody and in a playful way, but it, like, all those kinds of things. Like I see comics repeating that, or maybe they're really, you book a lot of stuff, so like there's people who are like, this is outrageous that that you don't have me on every 3 weeks. I'm so good.
Right. Oh, hey.
Oh, sorry.
So that's how outrageous it is.
That's how outrageous.
Yeah.
But like, you don't talk about, right?
Of
like,
course, they're being too like pushy, and it's
a little bit like. And I think by the way, the biggest mistake is the flip side of that. People aren't pushy enough, where it's like a really good comic and they're not doing the work of like writing to producers and saying, hey,
there's a Goldilocks level, like right in between, where you're just like you're aggressive but not overly aggressive, because it's a small scene. The scene is small. It seems big, but it's tiny. Everyone knows everyone, and your reputation gets formed pretty quickly.
It's true. Like you have to have that that ability to to override the, like, am I bothering this person? Like that's if I answer your question succinctly, the number one mistake is thinking that you're bothering people, because I think that's a lot of times people go like, I don't want to bother this person.
I mean, I even thought that when I reached out to you. I was like, Troy doesn't want to do a podcast.
Kidding.
He's probably busy. And
dude,
we all have the dialogue constantly.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, no, you know what? Think about this. Like, what was the movie I just watched where, there's a movie. It's called My Dinner with Hervé. There's a guy named Hervé Villachez. He played Tattoo on Fantasy Island, the show from like the 80s. And he was this, he was a little person. And he one day, I mean, here he is. He's 3.5 feet tall.
Yeah.
He busts into a studio executive, like I forget, it was like literally the guy who runs MGM. And he starts doing a dramatic Shakespeare monologue for him in his office without an appointment. And then he actually even has a knife and like stabs the guy's desk. And like, this guy was freaked out, but doing that bold move of like, hey, you got to see me.
Yeah.
That led him into getting a role in he got a good role in a James Bond movie. He got one of the most successful TV dramas of all time, of the 80s anyway. And it was because he took that initiative and like believed in himself enough and didn't think like, I'm not going to bother people. Like, you have to override that thing,
Absolutely, yeah.
because in the end, that guy the guy who ran that studio was happy to have this person come in. Now, obviously, you can't do that
Yeah, you
very
can't be.
often, but
Yeah.
but the message
Different
isn't like
era,
bust into. Yeah, I'm not saying
Yeah.
bust into someone's office. I'm saying go take
Right.
a chance on
Yeah.
take a chance on something creative that puts your work out there, because it's never who you know in this business. That no one gives a shit about who you know. They care about knowing your work. If they know your work, then they know where to put you.
Right. The title for this episode is going to be Troy says carry a knife and stab people's desks. So
Always stab someone's desk if you're going to make a point with that person.
Yeah. Oh, that's even good. You kind of
every time you make a point, you stab a knife into a desk. I'm going to start doing that.
I remember walking around because I'm from Vancouver, and I was walking around and I hit this used bookstore and I found this old book from like the early 90s, like, oh, there's your eyes, on how to make it in Hollywood. And it's kind of like, it's like real 90s stuff and you're flipping through it. But it had this one great quote that I always use, which is, don't be boring, don't be desperate. Like, that's the rule of LA, like how to make it. And it's true, because you don't want to be like, can I? But also you don't want to be boring too. You got to be exciting, and people want to have to work with you.
And in the interest of giving the positive instead of like telling people what not to do, because that's a valuable thing. Like, don't be boring. What was it? Don't be boring and what?
Don't be desperate. That's the rules
and
of
don't
LA.
Be desperate. So the opposite of that would be, instead of being boring, be interested in other people. So that would be positive, the inverse of that. And then instead of being desperate, go out and do your own work. Like, instead of getting someone to put you in their sketch, go make your own sketch. Then you have a body of work. So there's no desperation in that. There's action in that. So take action.
We all have the tools and ability to start our own thing. And even with the pod, I was like, I'm going to start it, and then just with audio, and then I'll get video. I just started instead of like waiting for it to be perfect. And I lost like 4 months just mulling around with the music. And my friend was like, what are you doing? Like, how come you're not? I'm like, all right, you're right. Just put it up.
That's one of the big inside jokes of filmmaking is like, there's like this famous like inside filmmaker meme. It's a chart, and it says time spent in the filmmaking process, and it says like it's like 3% of the pie is actually shooting and editing the film, and then the other 97% is looking for the right music.
Yeah. Well, we all have friends, I'm sure, in this town that like have shot things that are great, have never been released because they could never finish the edit. And then time goes by, and then that's not relevant, or it just never goes anywhere.
And that's what Seth Godin's book, The Dip, is about. And that's why I tell people, probably every podcast I do, I tell people, watch this like 10-minute video called Quieting the Lizard Brain. That's one of the coolest things Seth Godin's ever done, is he's just speaking. It's kind of like a TED Talk thing. And it's about how to take action when you hit that dip, because it's always fun to shoot a movie, and it's never fun to edit a movie. And that's what I had to learn the hard way. And it was like, by the way, painful and grueling process, the editing process of working with the editor and raising the money. I had to do a Kickstarter. I had to kick in a bunch of my own money to get this thing finished. But every day with Eddie was nonstop, super fun. And it was exciting. We're making this movie. And then you go home, you load this footage, and you go, oh my God, where do I start? This is overwhelming. So, and that's every project, anything worth doing, you hit that dip. And that's what he talks about in Quieting the Lizard Brain. And then he made a book about it called The Dip. But if you want a good synopsis, oh man, it's so good. Quieting the Lizard Brain.
You could write a self-help book. You got a lot of maxims, and even off the cuff, they were kind of rhyming and introspective.
I would love that. I'm not sure why I don't. Maybe I need to take action on that. Maybe when I put out my photography book, I'll combine the two and just kill two birds with one stone.
Love it.
you know?
I'm even like I've become a little bit of an editor too. Like I have Premiere now, and it's like it's the biggest thing I procrastinate with. Like, and even last week, like I was editing, and then like, oh, I was like, one camera was in the wrong frame rate, and then I'm lining it up, and then sync's not, and it's exporting weird, and I'm googling things. I'm like, how to Premiere this, fix this problem. I'm calling my editor friend, and he's like, get out of here.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I
It's
did? Like what I did to get around that, because I have the same thing. It's really, really difficult for me to stay on task sometimes with like really intense projects like that.
yeah.
So so I remember the first thing I did when I got my set list TV show money is I hired an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the best things I ever did. I hired someone named Hannah Crichton, who later, you know, ended up being like the booker for New Faces and Just for
Mm-hmm.
Laughs and all these great shows. And Kimmel, she like has a lot of great instincts, but she also kept me on track. So
Mm-hmm.
having that account, it was worth it for me. Like instead of like going out and buying a bunch of expensive things and a car and a whatever, a Burberry jacket,
Right.
I put that money into to a person who I sat with almost every day, and we worked on projects and we finished them. And when you do that, even if you're listening to this and you're a broke person, find a way to scratch up $40 and then see what you can get for that on Craigslist, hiring somebody to help you with a specific project. Maybe it's just 2 hours with a really good person, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's 3 hours with someone who just really needs the money. 40 or $50, and you can, instead of two of you,
Mm-hmm.
you end up with three of you. When you hire one other person, by you staying on track and they're doing some work as well, you're doing the work of three people now. That's just how the math works out from my experience.
Yeah.
So
One plus one is 3 or 4.
1 plus 1 is 3 in this situation. At least that's
Yeah.
my experience. And that could vary per person. Maybe it's more for some people or less for some people. But what it does is it creates accountability. When you want to quit a project, you just paid somebody,
Yeah.
so you're invested now in it, and that's investing in you.
Well, your
You're also
ego's at
helping me.
stake because now they're going to fail in front of this other person. It's kind of like when you have a
Fa-
new project,
exactly.
you tell everyone about it first. So now you're publicly accountable. So they're like, oh, well, what about that thing you were going to shoot? And they're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the trap with that thing, that exact thing you're talking about, what you have to be careful about, because there's a little bit of accolade that goes with like, hey, I got this new great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell someone that new great idea and it really is a great idea, that's a trap, because that person go, that is a great idea. And then what happens is you get this sort of you get this dopamine from that. So whenever you share with someone a goal that you have, give the date. You say, yeah, I'm going to do this
Ah.
by June 3rd. Will you call me on June? Will you text me on June 3rd? And then I'll tell
Mm-hmm.
you if I'm full of shit or if I really like followed through with it. If you do that, that's like that's like an accountability person. And by the way, that person they'll put it in their reminders, and they'll send you a thing, and it's actually like a really good way to do it. Like, it keeps
Yeah.
you accountable, and
Accountable.
accountability is everything. There
Yeah.
in Hollywood, there's no accountability. People just do their own thing
Yeah.
here.
And the weather never changes here. It could be 1 month, 2 months. How much time has gone by? This quarantine here feels like, what was it? 2 weeks, 8 weeks, 100 weeks? It's so
Yeah,
weird.
exactly. It's sort of in the air here.
But you're right about like paying people because first of all, it's so helpful to have like another human helping you. But it's also like there's this weird thing where people don't like to pay other people. Like a lot, we'd usually rather buy equipment or like you even see it in companies like labor is always a thing. Like get rid of labor, keep assets. Like it's like humans have an aversion to spending the money on other people.
Yeah, and
It's
investing in
weird.
people is what it's about. Like,
It
that's
is what
how,
it's about. Yeah.
I mean, I know people who have really cool businesses that they never hired another person. They never hired one other person for their business because they just thought it was too risky and they didn't want to invest.
Yeah.
But that's how a business. Imagine if Bill Gates was like, man, I got this really cool idea, or if Jeff Bezos started Amazon, he's like, I'm just going to ship all this stuff myself and just keep it kind
Mm-hmm.
of small.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you have to take that leap of faith and hire. And again, if you're a broke person, then just save up $50. Don't, save up 40, $50 and just hire somebody for a couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
And like I did this all the time. And then eventually I, like with Hannah, I was able to hire her, maybe like, I don't know, a good amount of hours, all not full time, but close to full
Mm-hmm.
time. And it changed my life. It was the best investment. And looking back, best investment I ever made in my life.
In Tim Ferriss's book, like the 4 Hour Work Week, like he always talked about hiring like an assistant in India or something or some foreign place. And
Oh
I
yeah,
don't,
I've never done that.
yeah, I've never done that, but like I always thought like, oh, that seems like something like he and because like he's working when you're asleep, or he or she.
Right,
I was
right,
like, oh,
right.
that's an
Yeah, a
interesting
virtual
take.
assistant.
Yeah, a virtual
Yeah,
assistant in another country that's not in your time zone because you go to sleep and they're working.
yeah, totally,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. I mean, I did. And when Hannah was gone, I ended up having this amazing dude named Cody who sort of took that over, and it was the same thing. Like he just kept me on track. Like you got to have that. And if you do a virtual assistant, then your labor cost is really, really cheap. So you
Mm-hmm.
can totally do that.
Yeah, and we met actually at Dynasty, and like, what would Dynasty typewriter be without the people? Like, Jamie
Oh,
was so
totally.
good at like rounding up a good bunch of people that created the energy and the atmosphere for what he was trying to create.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And Jamie, by the way, we're both big Seth Godin fans. Uh,
Yeah.
Jamie and I have always talked about that, like, and he knows how to work with people. Again, that comes back to that, like whatever you're doing, if you're a comic and you just have funny jokes, look at how, like, do you write people back on social media, and do you connect with people? Like that's such a big thing now, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to keep up with it. But when I look at, like, I'll give you a good example. The really, really big comics that I know and work with, they have this weird thing where they're better at, they have, I feel like, less time than I do, but like somehow they're really good at replying back and like
Yeah.
staying on top of stuff. Eliza Schlesinger, I mean, I've never seen someone as good as her, as just an example at like staying on top of stuff. Like when I would book her for a setlist show, she would let me know her avails. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was like so quickly. And look at, that's somebody who's got a killer career, but it's
Mm-hmm.
because she built it on being really, really funny and really, really good with people. And
Right.
she has all those people skills that I admire that. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
wish, like I always want to like just be around her just so I can absorb that through osmosis, because she's amazing on each level.
Well, it's kind of like when you want something done, give it to a busy person because a busy person already is like used to like being able
Yeah, I like
to
that.
add one more thing onto their plate, and they have the systems and they're like, okay, cool. Like even when I even get self conscious about it because I come from like I went to school. I've had jobs and stuff, and I'm like I do calendar invites to like people to be like, here's the thing, blah blah blah, da, da, da. And it feels cheesy, like what are you doing? But it's also like I'm sure
Oh,
people
so
appreciate it
nice.
too. It's already in their phone; they don't have to
Oh,
worry about
totally.
it and add their own thing, and
Oh, I think that's a
it helps.
huge thing. Oh, 100%. That is a huge thing. By the way, I never do that. I'm gonna have to start doing that, because that is a huge, important thing. People love that. Like, oh yeah, that it just shows, it just shows that you're considerate. And that's
Right.
what it comes down to. And people appreciate that. We're human beings.
This podcast is turning into an indie movie because the light is changing. So now,
Oh, I know. Yeah, oh, dude, that's right. You know what? It's because I didn't turn
it's okay.
the sun is.
It's fully linear. It's just funny now.
Wait, is it better this way?
No,
Wait. No, wait, no, now it's moving. Hold on.
now we have
So it's
continuity
okay?
issues. Yeah, that's okay. It's
Oh
fine.
yeah.
I was just
Oh, that's
commenting on it. It's
true.
funny.
But it is
Yeah,
getting dark because my
I just
light's
do
not
like a
on.
2 camera thing in Premiere where I'm like camera one, camera two, camera one, camera two. I'm surprised they don't have an
Oh,
automated plug-in. If anyone out there knows about it, let me know.
an automated plugin. I'm sure
To
that's.
switch
I'm
between
sure
the two
that's.
cameras
Yeah,
based
that's
on
a
the
good
voice
question.
of the person talking. I couldn't find one, but if it's out there. But I am
Yeah.
actually super excited about like hiring people to do the editing. I just started the Patreon for the podcast. We're gonna do an extra bonus episode a
Right.
week and really build it so you have like just extra cash to throw it around. But and all the money
Yep.
we're trying to raise on there is just gonna go into like building and hiring people, and because it does really help, and then you have someone else's expertise. Like I do have an audio background, but video is like a whole different beast, and I have just piles of hard drives that are starting to stack up. It really adds
Oh
up
man.
the storage space you need.
Yes, as somebody with a lot of storage and drives, for sure. By the way, a side note, one of the best things I could recommend is sign up for an account with Backblaze. Backblaze
Backblaze.
is, yeah. I know you always hear like on podcasts like sign up for this online backup service, but they're
Yeah.
all kind of expensive. For some reason, Backblaze they do everything I want, and they're like $5 or $6 a month. I don't get any
Mm-hmm.
money for this. I wish I did, but Backblaze I've used for about a year and a half now, and I think my like when I signed up it was $5 a month. Maybe it's six now. I don't know,
Yeah.
but either way, who cares? And there's no limit. So like you just plug your drives in overnight. You just have to like replug them in once a month to like
Really?
just sort of like recycle. As long as you like plug them in once a month to re-upload, or like just it scans them and checks for new files. Unlimited. I have 40, 50 terabytes just out there on Backblaze, and there's no other charges. Like there's nothing.
Wow.
So if my house burned down and I lost everything, I would just log in and say, send me a drive with all my stuff on it. They'd mail it to me for a fee, like $50, and then I mail the drive back to them, and everything's good. Or I
Dude,
can access it online.
Backblaze. I've been looking for my cloud storage solution, and maybe our first sponsor, Backblaze.
Yeah, Backblaze. Yeah, see,
Let's
yeah,
do
maybe
it.
they'll sponsor. Maybe they'll
Who
sponsor. But
knows?
dude, I don't know how they make money, but they've never failed me.
Yeah.
Because even like I was traveling once, and someone like it was like Netflix was like, "Hey, can you like send us these raw files of this and this and this?" And I was like, "Dude, I'm traveling right now." But I went on and I found the files
Yeah.
and was able to send them from like in the middle of a week-long trip. So it worked out great.
Oh, that's great. One of the things we do in the podcast is we talk about goals, like what kind of goals you want to achieve for this year. And a lot of this podcast is about investing, but a lot of investing is also investing in
Oh,
yourself. Someone in your position, what does a photographer, multi-talented producer guy have for his goals?
so for my goals this year, my biggest goal is to finish my first photography book, and then I'm also working on a program where I'm making collage images, like really cool photos of comics, and
Yeah.
then working with them so where they can sell them as posters. So so that's just two goals. Um, First book by December 1st,
Nice. Put the date in
and
there.
you can check it. Yeah, you can text me, see if I'm full of shit.
Yeah.
And then this collage program, which I haven't yet set a date, but I'll do that now, and I'll say that I'll have my first collage by June 15th. Or no, sorry, May 15th.
Love
May
it.
15th. But I want it out
Collage.
there by June 15th. Yeah.
Those are good projects. I love it.
Collage. It's basically like a really cool collage poster, but I want to make it something like it sounds lame just calling it that, but I think it's going to be something pretty cool.
That's awesome. What I'm going to put out a little goal, very short-term goal with you specifically is that I need new headshots and a new thing. So
Okay, cool.
I have no beard now. So I got a
Nice.
cleaner look. So once
Yep.
I'll put on my mask and we'll do some social
That's right.
distancing
Yeah, and we'll
shit.
have to wait until we can all get haircuts again. I can't. No,
Oh yeah,
I
I can't
can't
get a
wait
haircut. You're
myself.
right. All right. So
When
once I
none
get
of
a
us can get
haircut,
haircuts. Oh
as
yeah,
you
no,
can
this
tell,
thing's
like,
all on hold. So those are two goals, and that's having all this extra time with all this quarantine time. Like it's giving me time to focus. One of the things that I've been doing is I've been going through like old photos, stuff that I took before I was really like before I was had any real skills in live event photography.
mm-hmm.
And so like the previous day, like 2005, 2006, 7, 8, 9, those years I was more into like filmmaking, so I knew a little bit about that, about
Mm-hmm.
a lot about video, but I didn't know about photos and how freaking difficult it is to take shows
Right.
in a dark venue when people are moving.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going through old stuff, and who knows what'll come of that, but I'm finding some pretty great stuff, like
Yeah, it's
historically cool stuff.
Yeah, repurposing media is so important. Like I have, even with the pod, like to go back and find clips and then clip that for like Instagram and like little good moments. Like you can have your media working twice as hard for you if you go back and put the time back into what you spent creating in the first place, in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And when you look at like how helpful it is, like there's so many people doing things right with promoting podcasts. I think one of my favorite podcast promotion podcasts is I did one called Movies Made Me.
Okay.
And it's Cheryl. I forgot Cheryl's last name. She's fantastic. And if you just go to like Movies Made Me, find them on Instagram, and look at their promos, they're just made super well. It's
Movies
like little
Made
snippets.
Me.
It's like, you know, person's picture with the audio snippet, and it's just graphically really well done. I've always told her like, hey, I love the way that you do that, or whoever she has doing it. But yeah, Movies Made Me. It's a great podcast as well.
I'll check it out.
Yeah,
well,
for
dude,
sure.
I really appreciate you coming on the pod and spending this hour with me here. It went by so fast. I feel like we could talk self-help and stuff for a long
man.
time.
I had a blast. Thanks for asking me. I'll do it anytime. I love doing stuff like that. Yeah, man.
Where do people find you? I mean, Troy is the man to get on for photography, for all that stuff. Book them now, because hey, if you wait till the quarantine's over,
that's right.
It's going to be a problem. It's going to be a backlog. You're going to be way behind the list behind me.
There's going to be a big rush, but yeah, don't wait till the quarantine's over. I think a lot of it will be lifted, you know, in a couple of weeks, I hope.
It feels like it, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the only thing I use in social media that I like actively use is Instagram, and it's just my name, Troy Conrad with an S at the end, Troy Conrads. Yeah. But anything else, you can Google my name and then find my website for headshots and all that stuff. But yeah, I also want to say there's I shoot a lot for comedy specials, and I got 3 that I've shot for that are coming out at least in the next like 2 or 3 months. One, Eddie Pepitone.
Nice.
He has one coming out in I think mid-May, and it's on Amazon. And it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Like while I was shooting it, I had tears in my eyes. It was
he's
unbelievable.
One of the best.
And I, you know, again, I have a bias. I love Eddie.
Yeah.
All these there's a comic. Have you ever had Ronaldo Evans on your show?
I haven't had him on the show, unfortunately, but I've done shows with him, and I love him.
Okay.
He's great. Yeah.
Okay. I love Ronaldo. I shot his special in Palm Springs. That's coming out this year.
Oh, fantastic.
And Esther, little Esther, Esther Pavitsky. Her special is coming out, I think, on Comedy Central this year. So those are the like upcoming ones, and definitely people can watch Fielding Edlow's comedy special that I directed on Amazon as well.
Nice. So directing specials, shooting specials, headshots, everything you need. If there's a camera involved, Troy. Conrad's with an S.
That's right. Yeah, I don't like anything but staying busy. I don't like being idle or having free time. I think it's like, hey man, I'm here on this planet for a short time. I'm here to work and make stuff happen. And then when I'm gone, then there's stuff that that's still here.
Yeah.
If I just, you know, spend it the whole time watching Netflix, which I've watched already too much of this quarantine. There's
a weird moment where you're like, oh wait, don't end the quarantine now. I haven't finished everything I'm trying to do.
I know, man. I know, but I want to, you know what I want? I want to watch everything. So then it's over and I just go, all right, I've seen it all. I don't need any more.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but yeah, I can't wait to like just not have so much downtime. Nice.
Yeah.
Right on.
Thanks again, dude. Enjoy your night, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Latif. Talk soon. Later.